questions? She's got some.
Yeah, there's the list, apparently. I
I
didn't
thought
either.
she
I
was
did. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's been, yeah, exactly. Welcome back. Ah.
Oh, yeah.
Ah. How's work been going?
Busy, but very good, good, yeah. We've been lucky to sort of muddle through the last couple of years, just because we have pretty good diversity of clients, some real estate, some, commercial business clients. And so some areas are up, some areas are down, but we're doing well, so,
Good.
yeah.
Hang in. It's no small accomplishment.
Oh, and there've been a couple of law firms that have been in the city for 50 or 60 years that have imploded in the last couple of months. The Isaacson Rosenbaum firm, which
Yeah.
has been around since the 40s.
Know them really well. I was surprised about that. Well, we've got one of their folks on the record at work.
Yeah,
Bonnie Larson DePaz.
okay, yeah, and that was a tough deal for them.
One question. Are you a military brat?
No,
You, I see that everything you have on here is in Australia.
No, no.
Oh, maybe
you're
I'm,
too far.
no, I moved to the wrong one.
no, I'm actually originally
is.
Canadian,
Canadian.
but I've been in the U.S. for 31 years.
Oh, that qualify you for
No, I am,
food stamps.
Well, welcome, Chris.
thank you.
And you've been through this before.
Oh, yes.
So tell us, why are you interested in serving on the booze board?
And hot board.
And the pot board?
The Booze and Pot Board, okay. Well, I really enjoyed my time on the historic board, but after about 4 years, I thought, I'd kind of seen the great arc of what we did with the downtown historic district and all that stuff, and things started to quiet down, and I thought, I'll take a couple of years and get back to my practice, spend some time with my family on any evenings and that sort of thing. But when I saw just a couple days ago that there was availability, I thought, no, this would be really interesting. And interesting, I think, on a really different level than the historic board, because it's much more regulatory. And just thought, great opportunity to see if folks would be interested in having me back in a different capacity. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time on the historic board. We went through lots of excitement and, kind of the what I would characterize as the pitchforks and torches meetings early on when we were doing the historic district, but got through that, and I think we all felt pretty proud of what we'd done. So I've always had a lot of interest in administrative law and have actually practiced quite a bit of administrative law over the last 20 years. And so I thought, time to give back again. I've taken a couple of years off. I love Littleton, love my community, and thought it would be a great time to get involved and really an interesting board to get involved in. And so here I am. Of the licensing board? No, I have not.
But you addressed this a little bit, but what skills and experience would you bring to the board?
Well, after having practiced law for 20 years, I think I've got a good understanding of administrative law, of the standards that govern the conduct of board members. I have probably handled over 100 106A4 appeals from municipal rulings. I've defended both municipalities, government entities, and represented claimants in front of various boards. I've done a lot of constitutional work. I understand the requirements of due process and the prohibitions against arbitrary and capricious conduct and decisions by a board member, how to assess evidence, how to read and understand a municipal code. And I pride myself in these kind of situations that I can be take myself out of my advocacy role as a lawyer and be a neutral and really try and do something for the community and be an involved citizen and hopefully have some depth of experience to add to a board.
What's a 106A?
106A4 is the administrative, it's a Colorado Rule of Civil Procedure that allows administrative determinations to be taken to the district court and then ultimately to the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court. And it is a purely non-evidentiary administrative review of the record that was created by the deciding agency below. Colorado basically has two forms of administrative appeal. One's under the Administrative Procedure Act, the APA, the other's under Rule 106A4. And it's a very limited appeal. It's limited to whether there's sufficient evidence under the record to justify the appeal or whether there's been arbitrary and capricious decision-making that the board has not followed its rules or procedures or has done something to violate procedural due process that applicants are entitled to have. So,
The licensing authority meets on the second Wednesday of the month. We have an attendance policy. Are you open second Wednesdays of the month?
it shouldn't be a problem. I think when I was on the historic board, I had excellent attendance. I think we met on Mondays, but Wednesdays are fine. Should not be an issue.
Would you be uneasy, worried, or intimidated by the televising of the board meeting, which it is?
No, wouldn't bother me at all. I've stood up in front of the Colorado Supreme Court and had all 7 people in their black robes yelling at me at once, so.
We have a ratings contest between the council meetings and the licensing authority. Waiting, actually. Let's see.
Next one's not probably appropriate.
Pardon?
The next one's probably not appropriate. But I would like to ask a question, Chris.
Sure.
The licensing board has been looking at the possibility of stipulations with particularly liquor violations.
Okay.
What's your feelings about whether they should or should not be doing that?
By stipulation, you mean that the person who's been accused of the violation would come in and stipulate to a certain form of punishment or a certain form of penalty as opposed to going through the expense of an administrative hearing?
That's correct.
That's, yes.
Certainly sounds like an efficient use of administrative resources if it's in fact an appropriate remedy that all the parties have agreed to. I assume is there any right for citizen input before the stipulation is approved by the board?
Well, right now, we've pretty much put a squelch on the stipulation, at
Right.
least a stipulation that's tied to a penalty.
See, I work in a world where stipulations are heavily promoted by courts because they save judicial and legal time, proving facts, I mean, when I get ready to try a case, the judges sit down and say, you guys need to stipulate to as much as you can. This is your contract, this is the date it was signed, this is the parties, don't waste our time. So that's something that the legal system really promotes, frankly, is cooperation amongst counsel and.
Well, what we've had in the past is, we've had people that will stipulate to the facts of the case without specifically having an agreed-to penalty. And mostly because it's kind of a waste of everybody's time and money to contest some things that are pretty much, I guess they're contestable, pretty much uncontestable.
Sure.
It's the wrapping together of the penalty with the stipulation that gave the licensing authority some heartache because they felt like they were taking away their input to the process of determining what they thought was appropriate. I think that's the basis of Jim's question. So we were struggling with how much of that to do and how much,
Well,
leeway to grant.
Is the licensing authority actually involved in the stipulation, or is it being done at the legal level administratively within the city so that by the time it gets to licensing authority, it's already been stipulated away?
The second, and I don't know what the procedure would be for the licensing authority to be in on the stipulation.
Right.
Because it's a quasi judicial thing. And That's just one of the, that's something that's come up fairly recently, governmentally speaking.
Sure.
Do you have any conscientious objections to drinking or using medical marijuana?
None whatsoever.
Would you comment on your ability to be fair and impartial and limit your decisions to the evidence presented in the chambers and the requirements stated in the city code?
Well, hopefully I've sort of already addressed that, but I think after having been an advocate for many years, but also being somebody who judges evidence and judges cases, not just cases brought against my clients, but my own clients who sit down and tell me I got the greatest case in the world, I think I have pretty good experience in determining, weighing the sufficiency of evidence, applying the law, and hopefully making good decisions.
In addition to your law practice, do you have on the side a restaurant that you own or a ownership in a medical marijuana center?
No, I don't.
Okay. And what are your feelings about limiting the number of liquor licenses that are granted?
Are you talking about retail or restaurant licenses or?
Either one.
I think that it's probably appropriate to have reasonable limitations on the number of liquor licenses, particularly in a retail setting, in that you've got to balance the ability of the folks who are already out there who are licensed to be able to conduct business. And so I think within the administrative framework, there's a balance to be struck between too many and not enough. I would see it as more of an issue with retail rather than restaurant licenses.
Okay. Counsel, any other questions?
It used to be, in order to get a liquor license, the applicant went through a very rigorous procedure. And it seems like nowadays, business goes in, big business wants a liquor license, sell liquor, and they'll hire somebody to do this, et cetera, all of the petitioning, and this gets done, and there isn't that much of a hassle for the applicant, it's for himself. It's just something that's pretty much just given out anymore. We have liquor licenses going out all over the place. We've had in downtown Littleton, they said they would never reissue tavern licenses, but went by the board. People want to have a tavern license, that's fine, they just don't have to serve food, or just a percentage. And so that's the stage that we're in right now. Is you're going to have almost everybody that has a little restaurant or a tea house or anything will come in for a license. So tea house would want probably wine or something else. Looked at all that, and it's with me. I'm in the restaurant business, and I really don't care. It bothers me that they don't have the standards they used to make it. People go out and pick up all these signatures, et cetera, and then have to sit in front of somebody and argue for their license.
I guess some of that is the tension between wanting to attract new businesses and be user-friendly as a city, as opposed to being vigilant about who gets the license. And,
Right.
You've got to, again, strike the balance and handle them all on a single case-by-case basis and make appropriate decisions.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and your consideration.
Okay.
I was going to say when we're going to make a decision, but I'm not sure. It'll be probably in the next week or two. But then we'll let you know. Really appreciate it.
We ask if we can keep this application in case he's not.
Why?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
Why, Peggy? Why? Because we're going to, after the first of the year, we appoint everybody new anyway.
And this year,
I just think it's
Okay,
perfect.
who's number two?
Bruce, Ken, how are you doing?
Good.
Hey, can I?
Hi, Jim. thank you for coming and applying for this. We appreciate your dedication to the community.
Kenneth, do you go by Kenneth or Ken?
Ken, Kenny,
Okay. Why are you interested in serving on the licensing authority?
I just thought it'd be fun and different, something to do. I've been giving back to the community for some time here. I've been a volunteer to the police department, been on the Citizens Academy, been on the board of directors of the Citizens Academy, and I'm currently on the Board of Adjustment. So I would have to, I guess, resign that position if I got this one.
Correct.
What skills or experience would you bring to the board?
I have 5 years with the Board of Adjustment right now. I've had, in the past 20 years, served on juries 4 times, 2 civil, 2 criminal. I try and be fair and impartial.
The council has an attendance criterion. Would you be available to meet on the night your board or commission meets, which is the second Wednesday of each month?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Would you be uneasy, worried, or intimidated by the telecast of your board meeting on Littleton Channel 8?
Not a problem at all.
Okay. Do you have any conscientious objections to drinking or using medical marijuana?
I don't, as a rule. I voted against the medical marijuana. I kind of believe it's a sham right now, the way it's set up. I don't think most of the people that are getting medical marijuana honestly should be getting medical marijuana. I've had 4 cervical fusions and arthritis throughout my body. I could have medical marijuana, but I just don't believe in it, not for myself.
But to follow up on that, the council set up a limit currently of 4 dispensaries, or, I'm sorry, they're called centers now. If an issue were to come up for a center, or the number were to be increased, if that case were to come before you, do you think you could do an impartial and fair job of assessing whether they met the criteria specified in the city code or not?
Well, absolutely. Like I say, I'm not, as far as the medical marijuana goes, it was the will of the people that said it was okay. So I'm fine with it being there. I just don't personally believe in it.
Would you comment, Yes, would you comment on your ability to be fair and impartial and limit your decisions to the evidence presented in chambers and the requirements stated in the city code?
I think, like I stated before, I've been on 4 jury trials. I've been picked 4 times, and I've been very fair and impartial in those times.
You're doing something wrong, Kenny, if you've been picked 4 times.
I honestly, Jim, the last time I got picked, I was in Centennial, and all of a sudden they said, "Is this the John Elway?" And John stood up and said, "Yeah, it's the John Elway."
He was on the jury.
He was one of the 300 people in the room.
Right.
Of course, they picked him to go to a jury trial and kicked him right 10 minutes later.
I had a friend that happened to be in that same group and was telling me the story of him being in the pool.
Well, see, I didn't even know, and all of a sudden, in the middle of all these seats, when they said that, John just stands up and says, "Yes, it's the John."
Red Sea Party.
So then people are flocking over, trying to get his autograph. It was awful.
What are your feelings about, let me back up. Are you in law enforcement, or do you have any interest in a bar, restaurant, liquor store, or medical marijuana center?
I am not in law enforcement, and I do own my own business, but I have no intention of a bar or restaurant, no.
Okay. What are your feelings about limiting the number of liquor licenses granted?
I'm in business for myself. I say the more the merrier. If they could put a liquor store on every corner, if they could make the money, I don't have a problem with them being there. I'm for free and open society for business.
Now, have you really not ever thought of shot glass and shot glass, combining the two?
Believe it or not, a lot of people call up and ask, "Did you say shot glass?" And there's someone out there with that name.
Really?
Yeah.
Any other questions, council? Jim, you want to ask yours?
Well, recently, the Liquor Authority has been having some discussions around stipulations. Do you have any thoughts one way or the other about the stipulation process for liquor licensing? Liquor,
Like a plea bargain.
As in,
well, as Doug says, like a plea bargain that's settled by written communication between the Liquor Authority's attorney and the attorney for the culprit, so to speak. And it just comes to be approved by the Liquor Authority.
do I have a problem with it?
As opposed to having a
As
full hearing.
opposed
No.
to having a full.
Not at
hearing.
all. That's the way our justice system runs. And this is, I guess it's a quasi judicial authority, the same as the Board of Adjustment. So it's very similar to the board that I'm on right now. And right now, we've had 2 cases, I believe, this year. Pam Hall does a great job. She handles it before it gets to us. And that's pretty much the same thing.
And Kenny, forgive me because I'm not as familiar with your business.
Okay.
But often liquor stores or medical marijuana centers may need glass at some point in time.
Absolutely.
Do you have clients that, is that the kind of glass that you provide that would be the plate glass that would be windows or?
We do. We do. If someone were to break in, yes, I would fix their window.
And also a question that Councilperson Cole asked is, have you ever watched or attended any of the licensing authority meetings?
I have not.
What else? Thank you, Kenny, for coming.
Thank you.
We're going to hope to make the decision on the next week.
Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you.
Next victim.
Here's the hotline.
Ah, yeah, okay.
If it is before the trial.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, Deborah.
Hello, nice to meet you. Good. I was telling the lady out the front there that, you know, the questions that we were sent, I had
think
them all
it'd be a
printed out, ready
conflict.
to go, and grabbed the printout, came here with
It
my
is
questions, and then I discovered as I got here that they're actually cut off. So all my answers are cut off. So I got it on my phone, but not on a piece of paper.
Well, Deborah, let me first thank you on behalf of the council for being interested enough and dedicated enough to apply for the position.
Thank you.
We appreciate you spending your time to come down and apply. For rotating questions around council people, go ahead.
Good, thank you. I like being involved in the community. We've only been in the Littleton community for the last year. We came over here from Australia 12 months ago. And when I was in Australia, I was very involved in our local community. I wasn't involved with the council, but I was involved with my school as a PTO president and things like that, and organising fetes, and which I don't know if you know what a fete is. It's like a, what do you call it over here? I always have to do the conversion, like a carnival fundraiser. And so I just like being involved in the community, and I thought this would be a good way of just being a little bit more involved. And also I have 2 children who eventually will get to the point where they'll be drinking and things like that, and I'd like to be part of the decision-making process, just, well, you know, to make sure that establishments are enforcing, you know, responsible drinking, so. What skills or experience would you bring to the board?
Well, as I mentioned before, I was president of the PTO in my children's school in Australia, so I've been on a board as such sort of before. I've also worked as a case manager and as a behaviour specialist, so with both of those positions I had to, you know, deal with a lot of different stakeholders and liaise with a lot of different government agencies. I had to look at different rules and laws and things like that and make sure that, like in the case of case management, it was for long-term unemployed
So I had to make sure that, that the people that I was looking after in my caseload were following the laws and the rules set out for the for long-term unemployment. So, gosh, I'm nervous. I'm like, this is horrible. Sorry, I'm like, okay. Sorry, I'll just take a breath. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I am. It's just like, oh my goodness, pressure. Thanks.
I mean, you're there all by yourself.
Yeah.
We're not that scary.
Yeah. Okay.
The council has an attendance criteria for people on boards and commissions. Would you be able to meet on the night that the authority meets, which is Wednesday?
Yeah, it's the third Wednesday of every month. Is that right?
Second.
Yes. Oh, the second Wednesday of every month. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I would be able to.
Thank you. And it says right here, inventing things. Would you be uneasy, worried, intimidated by the televising of the meeting?
Actually, no. When I read that, I'm like, oh, I think I'd be okay with that. As long as I'm sure the first time you'd be like, but then after that, I mean, do they have a light and things like that?
Actually, it'll be televised now.
Like this thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Hi, Mom. Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, no, I think it's actually good because, it's good for people. I mean, does anyone watch it? I shouldn't ask that.
Oh, yeah, surprisingly no. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. But I mean, no, I think it's good for transparency and things like that. And, I guess the older you get, the more you realise that it really doesn't matter what people think of you. So if you're being televised, it doesn't, if you do something or say something silly, it's like, oh, well, I'm sure they've done the same thing. So hopefully.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, yeah.
Or written tonight? Do you have any conscientious objections to drinking or using marijuana?
Medical marijuana.
Medical marijuana, yeah.
Medical
I was going to say
There's
because
two
I read
kinds
that,
now.
yeah, because when I first read that question, my answer was straight away no. I don't have any conscientious objection to using liquor or medicinal marijuana, but I do have objections to people that drink and drive and that don't use liquor responsibly, and same for marijuana if it's being used illegally, especially, I mean, Australia's got a great marijuana growing industry in Australia, and so, those people, I'm quite happy for them to be put behind bars and things like that, but as far as medicinal marijuana and alcohol, I have no problems with that.
Legal in Australia?
I don't think we have medicinal marijuana. It's not legal. They have a sort of the penalties vary depending on the use. So if it's someone caught with just a little bit and they're just using it themselves, their penalty is nowhere near what it would be for someone that is growing it and selling it to minors and things like that. The penalties are much harsher. And I think they're moving towards medicinal marijuana. I know that I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that they're looking at, prescribing it for people that need medicinal marijuana. So, Australians are pretty open to all that sort of stuff. We're pretty laid back, so yeah. But again, I mean, our drink driving laws are much, well, I think, I'm biased, but I think our drink driving laws are much better than yours because there's a real zero tolerance. I mean, I know you've got zero tolerance here, but we have booze buses, which basically you can get pulled up anytime, anywhere, and blow into a bag, and if you blow the limit, which depends on your age, if you're over it, then you're straight away taken out onto the booze bus and your blood's tested. You can refuse it, but if you refuse it, you go straight to jail, basically. So it's, drink driving is a huge issue in Australia, and, and the advertising, is this recorded? Because I don't know if I can say this, but one of the
Yes, it is recorded. It is streaming on the World Wide Web as we speak.
Well, I don't know if you're allowed to say this, but in Australia we can say this. But in Australia, the advertising is if you drink and drive, you're a bloody idiot, and that's basically, and everyone's like, yep, you're an idiot, mate. If you drink and drive and you get caught, that's your problem. Whereas, there's none of this suing people because, my rights were taken away because, it's like, well, you're drinking and driving, so you have to be
If you're drinking and driving here, you're a bloody idiot.
Okay, it's good to know.
Would you comment on your ability to be fair and impartial and limit your decisions to the evidence presented
I've trained as I'm a teacher, and being a teacher, you have to base your decisions and your comments and things like that. And I was a special ed teacher as well, so I dealt with a lot of children with special needs and things like that. And so when you are basing your decisions, you base them on the facts and what's presented to you rather than emotions. You have to try and really separate your emotions from, the facts and things like that. So I feel that that combined with, the case management experience that I had where for example, I would have an at-risk youth who is in breach of the contract. We used to do contracts where we would have to, we'd say, right, you're going to do this, this and this to try and get a job. And then if they would breach that, I would have to go back to what are the regulations, what have they done, have they breached it? Rather than, oh, this kid's so nice though, I don't really want to take their money away. It would be more, well, you've broken these rules, so therefore I have to breach, you're in breach of contract, and therefore we're cutting off your funding. So I think that combined with my life experience, being a mother, that you have to be very fair but stick to the boundaries that you've set. So I think I'm pretty sure that I know that I could follow basically rules. Like if you've got a code, I would be going back to the code and saying, well, this is what it says. This is what it says, and therefore they're not, following those guidelines or something like that. Sort of waffling on there, but you get what I mean. Yeah.
So then I'll ask my follow-up. So have you watched any of the meetings?
No, I haven't, and I didn't realise until I got this email saying that they would be, broadcast. I didn't realise that was actually available. I have looked at the minutes of the meetings and looked at the agenda and the minutes of the meetings that you've had, and it looks very similar to, the same sort of like format as, for example, a PTO meeting, which is obviously completely different, but same sort of thing. You're looking at, okay, this is what the agenda is, this is what we're going through, we're moving through these stages, so, yeah. So.
Any other questions?
You're Australian?
Mm-hmm.
Born in Australia?
Yes.
And how did you get to this country?
My husband and I met at a summer camp in northern Minnesota. We were working as camp counsellors.
Oh, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we met there. We ended up going back to Australia, getting married, having the kids. Then we lived in Minnesota for 5 years, and then we moved back to Australia. We actually moved back. We moved to America when the kids were 2 and 2.5 and 17 months and 2.5, and we moved over here the first time on September 11th, 2001. So that was a really good time to move. We were actually on the way over, and we had to stop we had a planned stopover in Japan, so we had to stay in Japan. And we told the kids, well, America's closed, and when it's open, then we'll go. Yeah, because we'd been telling them for months, we're going to America, we're moving to America, and yeah, so we lived there for 5 years, and then we came back to Australia, and then we've just moved back.
Okay, have you?
A bit over 12 months ago.
Do you have American citizenship?
I have a permanent residency.
Permanent residency.
Yeah, it takes 5 years to get citizenship. And originally, the last time we were here, there wasn't the option of dual citizenship, and I didn't want to give up my Australian citizenship. But now, last I heard, I believe you can have dual citizenship. Both my children have dual citizenship, but it used to be that when they got to 18, they had to choose. But apparently now I can get both, so I'm looking into.
They can keep them, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, so I'm looking into that at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, we actually have a resource in the library.
Oh, okay.
Helps with getting citizenship.
Oh, okay.
And making the applications. They would know all the details of the dual citizenship.
It's good to know.
Did we ask number 4?
Or 3.
Or 3?
You didn't ask 3 or 4, Peggy.
Are you in law enforcement, and what are...
I know. Are you in law enforcement, or do you have any interest in a bar, restaurant, liquor store, or medical marijuana center?
No.
And what are your feelings about limiting the number of liquor licenses granted?
Yes, I haven't looked at, I can't read my notes either because it's too small. looking and going, I can't even see this. Sorry, what are my feelings about, what was it again?
Limiting the number of liquor licenses that
Um,
you can be
Yeah,
acquired in the city.
I thought, when I read that, I thought, well, market-wise, you would want to limit liquor licenses anyway, because otherwise you don't want to flood the market. So, because for the businesses that already have liquor licenses, it wouldn't make sense to just completely flood the market. And as well, I don't think that would be responsible, because you want to make sure that whoever you're granting licenses to are going to be responsible in the sale of liquor, or, in the distribution of liquor. So I'd imagine that, with that, you'd want to take your time making decisions, look at, what establishments are already out there, before you actually granted more licenses. So, yeah. I'm sure I've got better answers down here, but I can't see them. I'm,
Need to know who's gonna win the Aussie Rules Grand Final.
I'm sorry, I don't know who's playing, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, I actually hadn't checked, but
Yeah,
we
no.
used to go to it every year. Friends had spent time in Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
And had a lot of Aussie expats that were over here, so we
You
go
go
out
and
and
watch it.
at the end
Yeah,
of September.
it's a good game. See,
Yeah.
I'm from Brisbane, so Brisbane's more rugby league, rugby union, but I like Aussie rules better. But
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's a great game. It's a lot of. There's a local Denver Bulldogs.
Yeah.
You get hurt playing that sport.
Well, there's no padding in all of those.
Yeah.
It's not like
It's fun to
gridiron
watch,
here.
though.
Yeah, so.
Thanks.
Are you aware that Littleton has a sister city in Australia?
Now, I heard that the other day, and I can't remember where it is. Do you know where it is? You would know.
Bega.
Bega.
Bega, New South Wales.
Yeah, that's right. Bega makes
Home of
good
Bega
cheese.
cheese.
Yep, I was going to say it makes good cheese. Yep.
And we were also the first sister city of Australia, so now that there's a big list, we're right on top.
Oh,
So
that's good.
We've
yeah.
had a 50-year relationship.
Yeah, someone told me that the other day, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, but I didn't live. I've been to Bega, but I've never lived there. So yeah, but I know it's got good cheese. You
We
can buy
have
it.
quite an active group here in
Okay.
Littleton.
All right.
And every 2.5 years, we exchange trips.
Okay.
And when they come here, they live with us.
Oh, okay.
And when we go there, we live with them.
Huh.
So
That's good. That's
real
good to
nice
know.
relationship.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Australians like Americans, Americans like Australians, except for during the war, they weren't too happy with the GIs, because they used to go out with stockings and take all the girls. So yeah, that was why there was this rivalry came up between the Americans and the Australians, because of the Americans.
Stockings.
Yeah, the stockings, pretty much. That's what happened. They used to come out with, I think it was like stockings and cigarettes or something in the 40s. It was a big,
Silk stockings.
silk stockings, exactly. Not like they are now, yeah, so.
Thank you very much, Deborah. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have 10 applicants. How many positions are open?
Two. Yeah.
And if we don't select you, can we keep your application on file for the next process? Because sometimes openings come up with that. Thank you again, and we'll be making our decision next week.
Nice to meet you
Thank
all.
you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Change an agenda.
Okay.
Now the real.
Plan B.
All I know is next time it comes up, I'm not calling Deb. I was just the one that happened to have a phone and.
Well, I was walking in the door when you called, and I thought, this is just too bad.
Right.
am ready to work.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
Got flags and
And I got highlighting in here.
that was scary.
let the fun begin.
Can we have a prayer first?
Separation of church and state.
Phil,
What I,
can you close those doors real quick, please?
what I recommend is that we have Jim give us an overview, basically the budget message. Then we go to the revenue, and then the council can decide what you want to do from that point. If we want to go to each department, or how it is we want to proceed. Is that all right with everybody?
Okay. Thank you, Doug. And what I wanted to do was give you a brief overview, and then we did get a number of questions, specific questions from some of you via email. The budget team, what we tried to do was kind of consolidate them, and what we thought might make sense is to go through them in the sequence that they come up in the book, so that we're approaching those. Some of you had questions early in, some of you had revenue questions, but then Tiffany and Erlene and Doug all have, Phil, all have questions. So we've got a pretty comprehensive list. We thought it would make sense to move through them in the sequence that they come up. But obviously, if you think we've missed something, please let us know. But we thought that would be kind of a logical way to approach it. So let me just start then, as the mayor said, with a big overview. And we term 2012 as murky. Quite frankly, we started into some kind of containment, cutback mode in 2005, I think. I'd have to go back and look. But each year, we have either been very conservative on budget estimates, or we have been in cost containment mode. And obviously, with this economy, the 5 years that we've had has been very up and down. I think, again, I would say our revenue estimates, and we'll get into some specific questions that council members had for 2012 are, I wanted to say moderately optimistic. I think I'll modify that to tentatively optimistic. And part of it is, here's probably the three things. We're projecting very modest 2 to 2.5% growth in revenues next year. The things that I worry most about, one is a double dip recession. And that's in play. Everybody's talking about that. A double dip recession that would have an overall depressive effect on all of our revenues. The worst year we've had in the last 5 years was 2009. Our sales taxes were down almost 6% that year. And that was coming off of the big meltdown in the market. We bounced back a little bit in 2010. We're up to 4%. This year, we're up about 2.5%. So we very cautiously are predicting that slow kind of molasses growth will continue, but there will be some growth. A double dip recession will change that assumption. But at least right now, we're kind of coming back, and we're assuming, who knows what's going to happen with any of the deficit reduction, you can watch CNN any day of the week and get 5 different versions of what's going to happen. But we took a moderately optimistic approach. So the double dip recession, I would worry about. Secondly, would be a closure of one of our big boxes. Either if Home Depot or Lowe's went dark because of either a national decision, given the makeup of our income stream, that would hurt. And the third one would then be if there were, what I worry about at Aspen Grove, and Aspen Grove is investing, doing some things down there, but one of the things we don't have any control over is the national chains down there. If there's a major issue with a national chain, I'll give you an example. Last year, Ann Taylor closed every store in the country. Even if the Aspen Grove store had been doing well, sometimes those chains get caught up in a national economic picture. So if national chains closing down in Aspen Grove, a double-dip recession, or if one of our big boxes went under, we would be scrambling in 2012. We're assuming that none of those things will happen, and that there will continue to be some slow growth, but we will see some growth into next year. I'll say to you, the goal that the budget team and I tried to do, we put together, you had given us specific instructions to come in with a budget where revenues equaled expenditures. We did that, but we also are recommending things that we think are necessary and prudent. I will continue to respectfully remind you that we have 450 employees who get up every day and come in to try to carry out your policy. So when we have questions, we will be asking you for clarification about what we're trying to accomplish, in a very respectful manner, of course. But that will be something that the council, that we'll be asking about. For example, the council adopted your financial policies last year. Your fund balance, your policy says you will maintain a fund balance in the 8 to 18% range. It's specifically crafted to be in a range depending on circumstances. We are projected this year to be in the general fund balance at 16%. So we're at the upper end of the policy that the council adopted. So if there's cuts, and I know some of you have recommended this, then I will be asking you to clarify what it is you're trying to accomplish with a specific cut. So with that said, given the instructions that we were given to have revenue, and again, I'll gently remind you the difficulty of making projections of revenues equaling expenditures sitting here in September of 2011 and trying to guess what those numbers are going to be in December 31 of 2012. Now, in 2 weeks, I will hand that task over to Michael, and he can take that up. But so maybe he has some sort of more clever crystal ball, but it is a challenge. And so you see the assumptions on page B. We did request or recommended a 1% salary increase. And let me give you my thinking on that. One is that we think the way the salary surveys work is that we guess in September, again, what all the salaries are going to be 16 months from now when we do the surveys. And so what everybody's plugging in and telling us is not always what the actuals are. So the 1% that we recommended is predicted on the fact that we think most of the cities in the metro area that there will be some movement in 2012. We don't know how much. Some cities may still have to do furloughs, but if we're going to maintain our middle of the market, it's the 1%. I don't know if that'll catch us up, but it's the idea is to keep us from falling further behind so that you don't have to play more catch up in 2013 or 2014. So that's the basis of the 1%. We're not sure where everybody's going to come down, but we think that that's a reasonable middle of the road guess to at least keep us from falling further behind. It's the same way with the step increases, and I don't know to what degree we've had an in-depth discussion with council about how the step increases work, but these are in police and fire, so that these are different than market increases. A step increase is based on the assumption that when you hire an entry-level police officer or firefighter, as they move through those steps, they can jump as much as 9 or 10% in any 1 year because it's benchmarked against the skill packages of all the other police and fire departments. So when we froze step increases in 2010, that is putting us quite a bit behind in what I'll call that skill ladder. So the idea of catching up with those step increases is, again, not to fall further and further behind, or Eric will be telling you and somebody else will be telling you, you're going to start distorting your compensation philosophy. And we can talk more about that in depth when we get to that. Health insurance, because of all the cost containment and plan changes, Eric can discuss that in detail with you, but we're not proposing any increases in health insurance premiums. I think that's a fantastic, significant achievement on the part of all of our people, HR, and all of our employees who have participated in wellness programs. And so those claims really dropped this year. The street lighting, you were at a study session and you heard about the corroded lights. And we had some questions about why we moved it to general ops. I think the feeling of the budget team was, rather than, if you remember last year, we had what we call pass-through expenses. And so for public services, Charlie had this street light number, and then the budget team went through this exercise of, well, we're going to back that out and reconcile it. It just seemed easier for these pass-through expenses, where it is what it is, that we just put it in general ops, so we're not having to sort of play a shell game with the individual
I
departments.
thought it was because Charlie didn't want to do cost containment on Excel.
That could have been in play too, Mayor. And then the plan enterprise, permit enterprise, I think that got discussed with the audit committee, and either Tiffany or Arlene can talk about that. The library, when we get to that, we'll talk about those efficiency improvements. That is only a small piece of the entire study. It was some things that we thought were prudent. And then there was a question about the one-time savings of the pension forfeitures, and I think Councilman Stallman, you'd ask about that. What's up with that? That is essentially city contributions to pension plans where the employees have left before they vest. So that is our money, but if they've left the city before they vest, it basically reverts back to us. And over time, that builds up a little bit, and it got to a point where we felt like we could safely distribute that. So we really just took the 225 and distributed it to all the departments. So every department got the benefit of those forfeited pension plans. Yes, sir.
Distributed it as pension contribution in all of the departments?
No, I don't know.
How'd you distribute?
Where did we put it?
This just impacts the police and general governmental employees. So the fire department has a different pension plan that this would not affect the fire department budget.
Okay.
So it was spread out for police.
The question though is, where is it in the line item?
Where'd you put it?
Oh, it's in the retirement line item,
So you just
under
lowered-
benefits.
It was a credit to.
Yeah, it's a credit back.
That's exactly
right.
Okay, gotcha.
So lowered expenditures.
Okay.
All right.
And that contribution has been, we've actually done that over the years a couple of times. It's been over 4 years since we asked the trustee to bring that money back to the city to lower the contributions, but it would be the same process that we have done in the past.
Gotcha, okay. So it's a real cash transfer from whoever holds the
It's a
funds.
real cash transfer, that's exactly
Not a
right.
booking.
They said we have the biggest forfeiture fund west of the Mississippi. But we don't want to hold that status.
Doug, with that, you mentioned that the trustee is allowing that. Who's the trustee on the plan?
ICMA? Yeah, and it's pretty routine for them. I mean, they do that for other plans throughout the year, so.
Why isn't it, like, I mean, fire's got a different plan, but they don't have the same level of forfeiture? Or any level of forfeiture?
They're automatic, I think it's automatically vested. Do you know what they're?
level of forfeiture because they're in a true pension.
They're in the state's plan, so it's a little different structure.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, then those bullet points on B are baseline assumptions. Those are in the proposed budget. Then we added some comments that said if council is interested, well, that budget, all the assumptions in, if you looked at the summary sheet, revenues come in about $59,000 over expenditures, which I'm sure we will be within, $10 in December of 2012, but it's the best guess we could come up with. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify for folks, for the television viewing audience.
sir.
When we talk about fund balance of 8 to 18%, we're in the range of 16%, you're talking about the 2012 ending fund balance as a percentage of general fund expenditures.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. So we met your specific directions, and then we've got comments. And one of the first comments is that we're recommending that we do catch us up on the step increases, and that also I won't get into the minutia of how the general government works because they're on a merit system, but essentially the concept is the same. Catch people up on the step increases and on merit increases in general government so that in 2013 or 2014, we don't get surveys that show we're 5 or 6 or 7% behind, so that you're not playing catch up. With the initial estimate to do that was $64,000. We just had as I keep telling the budget team, this is draft until you pass your appropriations ordinance in October. So we had a calculation on that, and that number is actually, to catch everybody up to speed on their step increases and merit increases, is $123,700.
Say that number again, Jim?
123,700. Somebody I'm assuming somebody back there will jump up and down if I have the wrong number.
Different.
So,
Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from Earlene.
so the step increases are about 64 grand, and the catching everybody else up is about another 64 grand. 60 grand.
No, it's, the total pop is, if you look up there, the 212,000 is the 1%. Then there's which is in the baseline, then there's the step increase. So think of it as just 123 for both step and general government.
Now, you said that there were no step in the budget. Your second bullet point says you don't have any step increase.
Yeah,
That are not in the baseline budget.
what Jim is saying is the 64 grand that's listed on page B is really 123.
Yes, sir. So that's over and above the baseline budget,
I see.
okay?
Okay.
Eric has creeped up to the table. He's ready. All right.
More to that?
Again, I'll just hit highlights. Special Projects Fund, you see a number of things that we propose there. We can talk about that more in detail when we get to that. We did attach a detail of the, quote, water fund, which is now part of the Special Projects Fund. I will continue to iterate that please note that we have those lease payments and those out years that we must meet. So any money that gets taken from the Special Projects Fund, and again, in those out years of 2013, 2014, or 2015, those councils are likely going to be looking at the general fund to make those lease payments. So I will continue to urge you to be very, very cautious about dipping in any more, diverting any of that money to other projects. Let me see now. Where am I on my questions? Did anybody else have questions on the budget overview?
Jim, one of the things you
Yes, sir.
said about the expansion of the museum's collection center, that
Yes,
there
sir.
may be other ways to fund that.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to talk about that now, or wait till we get to museum?
I'd rather wait till we get to it because it's in the Conservation Trust Fund, and Tiffany's become an ace on how to get money out of that fund. So we can talk about that when we get to
We're
the museum.
bending just a little bit.
She's straight arrow, you know, she'll be there. But we do have, there is some, we do think there is a potential to use that Conservation Trust Fund money. Let's talk about that when we get to the museum. All right?
All right.
Overview? Yes, sir. Other than that, I'm ready to go to revenues.
Go back to the 123,700 on the step. What's the assumption regarding implementation on that? How does it get done? Is it, I guess I understood maybe there was an anniversary date issue. Is this happening on the anniversary?
You want to talk about mechanics? Eric? Mr. Stallman wants to talk about the mechanics of implementing the step increases.
Okay, mechanics. The devil is always in the detail when it comes to compensation. And obviously, we haven't done anything quite standard to our comp plan for a while. What we would be looking at is proposing that we would try to catch up the steps. Steps, unfortunately, though, because last year we said there would be no pay increases, all steps, and any merit increases would need to be done according to the numbers that Jim just cited in your budget book on anniversary dates. That's a little different than what we've done in the past, because what we've done in the past, particularly for police and fire, is that there's a certain group of individuals, once they reach their top step, any adjustments that they would receive on the first day of the year. And there's not enough budget for us to be able to do that. So the theory would be that we would make 2 steps adjustments on the anniversary dates for each employee. For general government, that's their actual anniversary date. For police and fire, it's when their natural steps would occur, or if they're at their top step, when their natural performance evaluations would occur.
So that's what the system is set up.
That's what we're proposing. It's not how the system is set up. We haven't, but that's how we're proposing to back into bringing you back into, or back up to where the market will eventually be when we resume.
You say it differently. Mechanically, you can, the IS can accommodate that kind of a process in terms of the actual physical pay output.
The HIRS system, we believe we can either do it manually
That's what I meant.
or,
Yeah, no, I understand.
yes, or program it.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm thinking it would be better to get it programmed as opposed to having somebody do all this stuff manually, because it sounds like it would be a complicated thing to do.
It would be. It would be, but it doesn't always work out that way, obviously, when you're working with systems.
But doing what you just described, that's the 123,700, not the 64.
Yes, to do both steps and to do an increase for your general government folks as well along that same line, yes, that would be the 123.
Okay, and
that
then the
you would
one
need to add into your system.
And then the 1% would be the 212, which is already in the budget.
It is already in the budget.
Okay, so it's a combination of the two.
It's a
Yes,
com-
sir.
it's a
Right.
All right, and is it any easier? It would certainly be more money, but is it easier to just do everything at one point? Or does that not make any sense? January 1.
Yes and no. I mean, part of this is that we're trying to back the organization back into their previous, or their pay philosophy, which still exists, and how we used to do it. We're just trying to step back into that mode. And what we've done in the past is an anniversary-based type of a system, except for those who are at their top step.
Okay.
It's also a cash flow issue, too.
Correct.
Okay,
So
Okay.
all right. Any other?
Question on
Yes, sir.
salaries, though.
Yes, sir.
That we're not expenditures. It looks like this year you put the difference in salaries in each of the departments instead of lumping it together in general operations.
We did. All right. Any other questions on overview? Okay. We'll start with the general fund then, page 1. And again, let me just point out to you, one of the reasons we recommended catching employees up on step increases this year if you'll see the overall summary sheet and the actuals of 2010, we ended with a fund balance, general fund balance of 6.6 million. Because we budgeted so conservatively in 2011, again, we were hedging our bets about whether there'd be a double-dip recession and cost containment. We estimated 4.5 million. We're going to end up at an estimated 7.6 million. So instead of drawing down the fund balance, we project we're actually going to add to it. We're projecting we'll go from 14% of the general fund balance to 16.7% at the end of 2011. So if I'm an employee who did not get a step increase, or any kind of an increase in 2010, then I may look at this and say, how come maybe I can get a step increase in 2012? And so those are the numbers. Let me then go to, if I miss any of these, Councilman Cernanik had a question about retail sales, looking for a trend or rationale. Again, as I mentioned, the murkiness, but if you look at our 5-year trend line, like I said, 2009 was our worst year. We were down almost 6%. We bounced back a little bit to 4.6% in 2011, and we're hoping it's a 2.5% in 2012. So again, a modest bounce back there. If any of those assumptions that I talked about, a double-dip recession, a closure of a big box, those projections go down. So that's really, Councilman, us just looking at the trend line, looking at the national stats. Obviously, Colorado's done a little bit better. We've been fortunate. We're going to continue to have some investment in Aspen Grove, but there will be a trade-off there because they're going to demolish the Buca de Beppo, so we're going to lose some sales tax there. Just other little quirky things, we've got a McDonald's that's demolished on Santa Fe, so we're going to suffer a little bit of shortfall there while those are out of action. Hopefully that'll kind of come back, but again, we're hoping for a modest continued growth in 2012. Mr. Farman, you want to comment on that?
I think you hit the highlights on the retail sales taxes.
Mr. Cernanik?
Good. Actually, I think the latest is the McDonald's that's on Santa Fe is going to open before 2012, so that might be good news, okay?
I think they're shooting for November.
I said before 2012.
And I think they're also going to try to improve the one on Broadway too at some point. So that would be the next one.
Well, the one at Mineral, not the
McDonald's.
other one. No, there are two on Broadway, and I talked to a woman involved with the project. It's the one at King Soopers at Mineral. I mean, the one in that area.
Okay, this is our best guess 16 months out. General use tax, the same. It's bounced up and down. It's pretty volatile. We were at a high of $1.4 million in 2008. Then we were down to, it's been flatlining at about $1 million. We bounced up a little bit this year. That general use, just so the council knows, that's actually a variation of the sales tax. But what happens is over time, and we got some big infusions back in the 90s, for example, when Quest, at that time US West bought the 600,000 square foot Martin Marietta facility. Sometimes a large company, when they come in and buy a humongous amount of office furniture or software or computer equipment, they will remit the sales tax directly to us. It's just easier for them, for their accounting, rather than pay it to a vendor that then comes to us. So the vendors, they really kind of have a choice, and some of them it's just for their own accounting purposes rather than having it come to us through Dell or Oracle. They'll tally it all up because it may be part of a big upgrade, and they'll pay us directly. So general use can just vary up and down depending on what's going on. Yes, sir?
There's no use tax on inventory per se, like if CarMax comes in and sticks 200 cars in a lot, there's no use tax on that, is it?
No, sir.
Okay.
Jim, you talked about the possibility of a closure of either of the two big boxes. Is there anything to indicate that from the sales figures that we've been getting?
No, sir. I always do the worst-case scenario, just so you know, it could get bad. All right.
Thank you for scaring us.
That's part of my job, it's in my job description. Motor vehicle sales, yes, that's a bright spot for us. Motor vehicle sales has bounced back, has actually done quite well, and so we're continuing to think that trend will hold. Very aggressive marketing and pricing on the part of the dealers, and so it is, Mr. Shernanek said, price increases or volume. I think volume's probably the answer there, because they're really trying to move cars. Property tax decrease in valuation, but Alta Aspen Grove will be online. Well, it depends. Part of that will be what they've got finished when the assessor goes out in January and assesses the properties for 2011 for 2012 assessment. So we might pick up some additional valuation from Aspen Grove, but I think I looked at, can somebody tell me, can one of the aces tell me? I think I looked at that, and I think that rental units actually come under the residential side of the Gallagher. I looked that up, and that may be another, but the commercial side is usually at around 29%. And I think I actually pulled their tax assessments like on the Trammell Crow project, and I think they're assessed at the lower residential rate.
I think you're right, Jim.
So that will, even though it's a nice project, because as you know how Gallagher works, it keeps a cap on the residential. So we're a little bit more conservative about that. And then, with the overall decreases in valuation, again, we just figured we'd probably end up losing a little bit of money.
Was the city stock overall decreased valuation?
Yes.
Because that.
We're guessing about 10%, didn't we say? 5%. We're guessing 5%.
Because some cities actually saw increases.
Yeah, ours actually is dropping. Cigarette tax, fewer smokers, I don't know the answer to that. Who wants to talk about cigarette tax?
Well,
Let's do
Oh, there you go.
There you have it.
If the economy stays dodgy, you might start.
I think it was because we actually are coming in a little bit higher than we estimated. So we're actually trend lining, Mr. Shernanek, for 2012 to 2011.
Wasn't there, the state collects cigarette tax on behalf of the cities and then passes it on. Wasn't there something in CML, something in the legislature about,
The state was going to take it over,
yeah,
go steal that away from the cities.
what was the disposition?
It was defeated in the state legislature.
yeah.
I remember something about it, but I didn't remember what it ended up being.
Okay.
Jim? Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy.
Yeah, I thought in our various monthly budget reports, finance reports, that the cigarette tax went down during some of the worst part of the recession and has started coming back up again. Does anybody, do you remember that, Doug? I mean, I'm talking over several months, but maybe I'm misremembering in the summary that Eric does.
Well, it looks like we're going to be trending a little bit higher this year than the 177,000 that's budgeted.
But if you look at trend, I mean, we were 228 in 08, then we'd bounce down, and then we're trending 177, and we plugged in, we think we're going to come in a little bit higher, 190. So we're looking at trending, maybe bouncing back, but you can see it's definitely dropped from 08, if you look at that 3-year, 4-year
Well,
trend.
and this one is actually one of those mixed analysis. The budget item that you included is less than the 2011 annualized estimate.
Right.
Yeah, that's one, our year-end estimate is probably a little too much on the conservative side. It's trending about 194, so that could go up a little bit there.
It was just, there was actually a recent study from the tobacco industry that fewer folks, fewer cigarettes in the U.S. Their growth is abroad.
Yeah, but they all cost more, so.
Bruce?
Kind of
I guess, I wanted to go back. You triggered something in my mind about a sales tax question. Do we collect sales tax on these use store it units? So in other words, you've got these commercial rental, storage rental garages.
Yeah, we do not.
Should we?
There's,
Can we?
there's a historic zone,
No,
Yeah.
she's saying storage.
storage.
Yeah, you've got these used storage
The many
places.
storages.
Yeah, like at Windermere and Bellevue.
Yeah, we cannot. I did ask my auditor that question.
Why?
I can get you the specifics on it. I think it had something to do with the term, how long they actually rent the units. So if it's more shorter term, then you can, but if it's longer term, then no.
Okay, I'd be keen
So
to
why
see
don't you
it.
send, why don't you send that out, that
I can
analysis
send that out to
council
everybody.
Yeah, okay.
on Eric's research on that, and give the citations, Doug, have him give the citations on either the state statute or our municipal code. Electric rationale for increase, this is again, Councilman Cernanik, and I think Tiffany or Arlene looked at that, and I think we're just guessing that's on trend. One of you ladies or Doug want to comment? Electric?
I think that's our best guess right now. It looks like we're trending at about $1 million this year. And then we are anticipating an increase for next year.
Due to pricing increases or due to volume?
Well, we think a little bit of both, but mainly on the pricing side. That one's hard to guess what Excel is going to do as far as the rates, but we are guessing the rates are going to go up next year.
Because that one was, just on percentages, is showing a 10% over the year-end estimate.
That's right.
Trying to understand where it is. Most of my questions, I tried to deal with the big chunks rather than the.
Well, you can see that one has bounced around too over time. 2008, it was 1,070,000, then it was back under $1 million. Then it was 1.145 million in 2010. So that one has really jumped around.
So does Excel get charged a charge if somebody like has solar panels and they fit something back into the grid?
I don't know how the solar panels work at Excel.
Okay. Court fines, a couple of you asked about court fines. Yes, as you know, we substantially cut that. If you remember the whole idea, well, let me back up. The court fines, the big driver there is the red light intersection. So let me not scoot ahead too fast for people watching, that's mingled in there. And so if you remember, the trend line on the red light intersections is that tends to peak, jumps up when we first install them, and then they tend to flatten out. So 2010 was a flattening out year, and now council authorized 2 more intersections. And so we're projecting then that we'll again have this kind of initial peak that'll jump back up in 2012. Again, then probably if it follows a pattern in 2013 and 2014, it'll again sort of drop back down. But since we've installed it, we're bringing those online and those 2 additional intersections, we're projecting that that'll have that typical peak in that first 12 months of operation. And so that's the driver on that. Fire service combined decline of 370. The big driver there is the dramatic reduction in overtime. I think you've been briefed that with HR looking at FMLA, I never get the acronym right. FLSA. I had the first part of the alphabet right. FLSA and a lot of work on the fire department. Overtime costs are coming down. Anybody else want to comment about what's in that 370? I remember overtime being the big piece, but.
We were able to lower the workers' compensation benefits this year, and so that will impact the revenues that come back from the fire districts.
Okay. Let's then just jump, because Councilwoman Cole had a question about, or either Councilman Cernanik about workers' comp.
Before you do that.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Miscellaneous revenue, you've got a year-end estimate of 139,000. It's anomalous relative to pretty much anything else on the line. It's at the 4th line up from bottom on page 2. It's 5,800 What's in the $139?
We had $124,000 this year that came from the Riverfront Authority, Littleton Riverfront Authority, and that was a one-time only settlement from a debt from over the years.
But it hasn't hit in, as far as June year-to-date. Would it hit in August or July?
It was on the July financial.
Yeah, that money's in the bank,
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
thanks to a man named Bill LaJoy and Jim Taylor.
And Jim Taylor.
Bill.
Okay, did I miss anything on revenues for any council member? All right, are you ready to go to departments?
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
half second. The revenues on street sidewalk curb decrease on page 4, fourth line from the top.
That was a revenue source that we had taken to council from the engineering department last year. And I believe the fees were approved to be increased. And the estimates we got back from the department were a lot higher than what we've been receiving this year. And I think it has to do with the economy, but I think some of the estimates were a little bit on the high side as well.
Well, that's sort of what I thought, but.
So
thank
they
you.
went back and they did look at it, but they said that budget was too high
Thank you.
for 2011. I think that was mainly on the street cut permits.
And also, Councilwoman Cole, you'd asked about building permits as related to possible the new improvements down at Aspen Grove. Again, it's hard to tell how much, what the value of that will be, and so we really, unless we had something else significant, again, we sort of played it real conservative for 2012. So,
Yeah, the thing that was just announced, the theater,
yes, ma'am.
so you are thinking of that already in these numbers?
Yes, ma'am, and I mean, but until we actually, because I haven't even seen the square footages, I don't know much about it.
No, it's okay, it just was so recent an
Right.
announcement, at least to council, and I thought,
Right.
boy, if you guys have it already, that's great.
Well, we don't, we actually don't, that's why we stayed
Oh, so you're
conservative.
staying-
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because I don't know, I couldn't get any dimensions, I couldn't get any calculations of square footage. You know, a lot of it has to do with the evaluation, how fancy is the equipment gonna be? I just don't have any feel for that right now.
That's okay, and then I had also asked you just before the meeting, with the projects, the apartments getting finished with the use tax and all, that's coming in, that's streaming in.
They wanted to pay on a monthly basis,
Yeah.
and they have a right to do that, and so that's what they worked out. So they're paying that just on a very steady,
Yeah.
monthly basis as they move through the project.
Thank you.
Any questions on revenues?
All right, council, shall we go through the department?
Okay, yeah, what's our direction?
If we're disciplined, we can do that in a fairly short period of time.
Okay,
All right?
all right, city council then, Ms. Nardi, will come to the table.
Any questions? All right, go to page.
Wait a minute, wait a
Wait.
minute.
The question that I had, and I'm not sure where it would be, is we've had some recommendations and discussions about improvements to the website. And is that reflected in here or
It's in special projects.
in special project?
34 fund.
Okay. So it was somewhere in there.
Any other questions on city council?
Oh,
Next is.
well,
Wait a
Yes, sir.
minute, wait a minute.
Page.
If you're gonna ask a question, let's get over this.
Yeah.
all right, well, Peggy, are you,
No, go ahead, go ahead.
we talked at one point about some money for citizen surveys. Is that in here anywhere?
It is not. I did mention it to Jim and the budget team, and I think
maybe Jim can speak to that, but he thought it would be more appropriate that if that was something that council wanted to do, that maybe we put that up on the board.
All right, so-
And figure out how to fund it. I do have some figures on it. The base price is $9,900, but there's a, and I do have that with me, but there's probably another $10,000 you can add on different types of reports and different ways to
Yeah. And to-
tabulate those reports. So it kind of, you can kind of customize it the way you want. So my guesstimate would be, it would be about $15,000.
And so, Councilman Stallman, just so that you understand, we, again, in my introductory remarks, we tried to hit your directions. But in my view, if I was going to recommend going past, dipping past the expenditures, the step increases, in my mind, were a higher, priority than, there's going to be some other kind of nice-to-do stuff that we didn't recommend, because my clear priority was those step increases and salary increases for the employees.
Can we throw items up on the whiteboard just to keep
Earlene
track
will
of
do
them?
it. Earlene likes to do this. She's a control freak.
Why don't you put step increases and then citizen survey?
That's a short timer comment.
You should see what I have to live with this.
Do you have money in the budget for step still?
You don't know what I've endured with this
Might want to
finance
write a
team.
little smaller. Because there may be more. Okay, just, no worries.
It's a big board though, Bruce.
Oh, yeah, you know how that is.
Earlene, try to write so small they can't see it.
The space, you fill up the space allotted, don't you?
So I have two quick ones on council. So why are the portraits and frames in 2012 budget rather than coming out of 11? Because I thought people's pictures were just taken last week. Well, that's a good point. We won't be ordering those till after the election, though. It just depends on when Monty gets it in, but you can take that out if you want. Well, I mean, I thought if you get the bill and we have money, go ahead and take it out this time, but then I had a question in what I emailed, and we could wait later, but since we're here, I didn't, as I went through all this, see where the calendar would be budgeted. It is taken out of, I think, the print budget.
Right. It's
And-
that's always been a line item in the city manager's budget. So you'll see that in 2011, we had reduced that line item down to $4,000.
Right.
Because what we thought, well, we'll just publish an annual report as required by the charter. But when the money was shifted from the printing line item, it was moved into that line item. So I think that line item ought to show up as 22,000.
Page 19, Peggy.
Then what I need,
22.5.
this is in a searchable format to get it, in my computer, and then I could just do a word search, but you start searching and you miss things. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on page 8, city council? All right, page 14, city attorney. Question? Going. Page 19, city manager.
Council, let me just make, in a spirit of full disclosure here, and so that you don't think Michael busted his budget even 2 months after he got here, our expenditures will be slightly higher by the end of the year. I did not end up, for a variety of reasons, taking as much vacation this last year as I thought I might, for a whole lot of reasons. So that there will be a payout that I will collect, and it will get reflected in here. So it won't affect the overall general fund budget, but it will kind of show up in this budget when Doug brings his year-end reconciliation to you, just so you know to be looking for that.
And also, you may have noticed that I increased the travel and training budget because in budget cuts, we cut that down to a very small amount. And since the candidate profile, when you were recruiting the new city manager, I thought it made very clear that you expected professional development and attendance at professional conferences. So I bumped that up a little bit to make sure Michael could attend some of those things. And no, he did not pay me for it, but
Yeah,
Yeah. I did it long before he was picked, so if he wants to still, that's okay.
Very good idea.
Does the salary number, though, reflect the net in terms
For
of
2012,
respective salary amounts, levels?
Earlene's saying no.
No, it does not.
Okay, so are you guys gonna do that?
Yeah.
We can let you know what the difference is anticipated to be, and we can change that for the adopted numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Do you want to put that on the board, Elaine?
Once you get a chair.
Just don't ask, just say.
While she's doing that, you ready to go to BIA?
Yeah, page 26, BIA.
Mr. Gibbons, anybody, any questions for Mr. Gibbons?
Wait a minute, hold on.
The one question I had, Chris, on this is, at the workshop this year, and we had some of the discussion of a bit more on the sense of outreach to places of business that are bringing in businesses that have rentals, you know, when we talked about the strip malls. And I know that's some of what you've done this year. Is this budget reflective of continuing some of that outreach into the community to say, bring your business here, or bring your business to this location because you're part of Littleton, and here's some of the services that Littleton provides?
Those are two different things. One is if you're asking if we have a marketing budget, the answer is no, meaning sending out. If you're asking, do we work with those local property owners to provide them information when they're bringing tenants in, the answer is yes.
And this is minor, but I already had emailed, so you know
Yes, ma'am.
this. But since some citizens have this document, did you actually do Sterling Ranch research stuff this year?
I'm going to pass around answers to your questions, Peggy. I only got that this afternoon, so.
Yeah, that's all right.
The short answer is that we have to prepare this mid-year, so I take from July to July as the year I report on. Otherwise, you know, I'm only going to have a 6-month report in there. The answer to your question is yes, Sterling Ranch was last year, but it was within the half year of last year's why I reported it.
Okay, and then since you said that, I would note that some of these departments don't seem to be looking at July to July, and some do. For example, and this is not an affront to anybody, but the police have the academy in, but it just started last week, so that's not an accomplishment yet. So it might be something to look at in the future, make sure everybody's focusing on the time period that's being covered. So, you know, we all have, most of us have an idea.
We'll try to be more consistent.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on
And,
BIA?
and on the 100 new jobs, that's net, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that might be a nice word to add next year. I mean,
Yes.
For next year's goal, then to just
Just call it
clarify
net.
it's net, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
It actually says net
Pardon?
24.
I'm on 23, or wherever I was, it just said 100 new jobs.
Yeah, it says net, produce a net.
No, somewhere I'm looking at something else. Yeah, I was
Okay.
looking at 5.
Well, we'll go through and make sure it says net everywhere.
Thank you.
The other thing I'm passing around here is there's really two parts of the budget that a department head controls. The salary is actually out of our control. It's set by the surveys and the HR department. The rest of that budget, we then have controls. What I'm passing around to you is the part that I control over the last 10 years. And you will notice over the last 8 years, we have consistently reduced that portion of that budget. In fact, it's been cut in half from about 200,000 to 100,000 over that 8-year time period.
Is this reflective of a reduction in focusing more efficiently, or is it in
They're all-
part coming from the reduction in some of the subscription services?
No, well, we didn't reduce any services whatsoever. They've all been efficiency reductions. Sometimes they were mandated, if you remember, there were some years where
Part of our cost containment.
yeah, we were part of cost containment. Some years, we just found, including this year, you will notice there's 5 areas in there where we just didn't spend that budget last year, and so I cut it out of this year's budget.
Chris, very good job. Any questions on page 26? Page 33?
Okay, admin, sir?
Actually, Doug, and I think, well, yeah, this is one I did ping you guys on, but I guess I'd very much like to explore, if you guys were able to, with the existing resources, close quote-unquote 6 sales tax audits resulting in $42,000 in sales and use tax assessments collected. What is your assessment of the incremental revenue we might collect with the application of additional resources? Is it 1x, 2x, 3x? What's the ceiling?
Well, we don't really have that metric right now. We've had an outside contract audit firm for 2 years now, and our return on investment has been 122%. But there's a lot of different factors that play out. We have a lot of larger audit candidates that we have right now that are being audited. So some of those audits might close this year, they might close next year. But after an audit is completed, we send an assessment letter to the company, and then there's like a negotiation that starts after the fact. We don't automatically get that amount of money that we assess.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors involved. We might have a stronger case in some instances than others, or we might be more willing to settle earlier rather than later if they want to drag it out for a year or so. So I don't know that we really have enough data right now, or,
Well,
to make those type of projections or assumptions at this point.
But I guess your gut feel for the thing, if we, for the sake of an argument, brought somebody in and paid, pick a number, 50, all in, fully loaded, do you think we would cover the cost of their salary? Do you think we could 2x it?
I don't think we could do that, to be honest with you. We had a meeting, well, Phil was part of it. We had a meeting a few months ago with our audit company. They said we were basically right on track to where we should be. They did not recommend us increasing those services at this point.
Okay.
What we did do is we are going to expand our construction use tax audits for larger projects. Because right now, our code enforcement, our building official, Jim Thielen, can do some of those audits on smaller projects. But as far as the bigger ones, we're going to contract out with the audit company to do that.
Are they gonna do it on a contingency basis?
Yes. It's always limited to a certain number of hours, and if they don't see an investment there of our money, then we can close that work right there. And so we're limiting the amount of money and the exposure to the cost for the city. But they saw more of a better investment with those dollars rather than on the retail sales tax or use tax side.
Okay.
But we'll continue to monitor that, and we think we have a really good relationship with that company, and they do audits, they work on regional audits for other cities. And so they have very good experience with Colorado sales tax law, which we really need. We have a
Doug,
unique.
you want to mention that what we're going to be trying to put into the next quarter, a report, just general? You want to
Thank
just
you very
give them a
much.
quick?
We are creating a quarterly report, and we're gonna start the first one with the August sales tax report, and then it'll be each quarter after that. But we're gonna be trying to incorporate some metrics, some audit numbers, some bankruptcy numbers, collection numbers, sales tax numbers, volumes of activity, and also dollars. So there's a lot of different outcomes and outputs in there. You've seen some of it already, because we've been trying to get some feedback as to what that might look like. But when we put this out next month, we also want other council members to give us some feedback, because we know it's not gonna be perfect, but we want to be able to improve it and enhance it over time. But we hope it's gonna be useful information for you.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions for finance?
Whoop.
Peggy?
Yeah, this applies to most of the departments, and it was in my questions and comments about customer satisfaction, or whatever term. And so, I'm hoping that maybe all the departments where there's any kind of so-called customer involvement, that we we try to make that a performance measure. And I'm assuming maybe new city manager is, based on what he said, that might be part of his direction. It's not a criticism of anybody, it's just several of the departments had that in their mission or their or goal, but then they didn't track it in performance measure. Several didn't have it any place. So it's just a suggestion.
And we can work with Kelly on that, if there's gonna be a citywide salary or a survey. Part of that could maybe be for utility billing or sales tax customers or something finance related. So we could definitely work on that for next year.
Thank you.
If you do that, I think you need to include sewer billing, and specifically late fees.
If we put it in the bill, though, people will just toss it with everything else, so.
Well, actually, that's a, you know, I mean, I know council gets some of these calls every year, but if you want a metric out of the whole time, we've got 50,000 sewer bills, and I bet you we don't get, 5% or even 3% complaint rate every year. So, I mean, the ones that you get are, unhappy people, but if you look at the totality, I think the finance department and the billing ladies do a phenomenal job, given that massive amount of bills that go out and the number of actual calls or disgruntled people that make its way up to your mayor or the council.
I mean, that's one reason for having these.
Yeah, and maybe even talking about that so that people get an idea of the magnitude of those billings.
And given our policy.
And, and given,
Billing.
and we try to blame it on council as much as we can, but sometimes it slips through the cracks.
Talking about blaming council, and I don't know whether it fits here or it fits with the sewer fund discussion. I know the question has come up about having, instead of a flat rate, more of a usage level billing. Would that project fit in finance, or does it fit with the sewer fund?
Actually, we did Charlie, we did a study on the usage, and I think we brought in an outside person. Charlie, come to the table, because that comes up, and I know a gentleman appeared, and as I recall, we did a very detailed study, and it is a very much, there's winners and losers. And
We
Charlie,
took 100 addresses in the city limits and then figured their usage based upon a formula that we thought would work. And a majority of the bills went up.
Charlie, when did we do that study?
About 4 years ago.
So we could dust that off again. I guess, to directly answer your question, Councilman, I think Charlie has a file on that in Public Services. I don't think we'd want to reinvent the wheel. So I would, if council's interested in doing it, I would recommend that Public Services resurrect that study, bring it to you, and dust it off if you want to take another look at it.
I would recommend, if we're going to do that, that's a study session topic, because there's also some policy decisions that go into.
Absolutely. I know it is. I didn't know where the project.
Yeah, you were just asking where should it land, finance or Public Services? I would say Public Services at this point, because they have the history.
I would recommend the sewer fund any type of new study if we had to undertake a new study. I just had a couple of quick comments for the finance department too.
Thank you, Charlie.
We are close to finalizing a contract with Wells Fargo Bank. We did go out and solicit requests for proposals this year, which we never had a contract in place, a written agreement with the bank for banking services. So we did test the market. We had 5 responses, and we reaffirmed Wells Fargo as our general banking services vendor. And it looks like we're going to save $5,000 there, so I'm comfortable enough. We haven't signed the agreement yet, but it looks like for next year we will reduce the budget by $5,000. And we also are close to finalizing an agreement on our purchase cards, where we would enhance our rebate on our purchase card spend, the amount of money that we spend on our cards, and that would be another $12,000 for next year. So I can go ahead and we can add those monies to the revenue budget.
Thank you. Any other questions for finance?
Yes, sir.
Doug, would you just check with the finance director at South Suburban and talk about their experiences they've had with their P cards and see to make sure that we're covering everything we need to be covering?
Yes, sir.
Good job, Finance. Page 40. IS.
Mr. Price?
And I don't know where this project might fit, but the question is, I have two. One is wireless access at the city center. And the second is a question with regard going paperless as far as the council's package distributions. Mr. Price.
Okay. Well, first of all, this is the first time the wireless project has come up.
There is wireless, you just can't access.
Well, then that's the issue.
We presently do not have wireless in the city center. The only place where we have wireless at the city right now is at Bemis Public Library. And that project was part of the Sophie's project. We have since expanded it, so the entire library now has wireless access.
Now, wait a minute, so since I'm on the library board, there come up issues from somebody on the board who has problems accessing the wireless well there. And you guys, I think, worked on it. Is that resolved now?
I believe so, yes. My staff has been working with the staff at the library to get that fixed.
Okay, because I think he's watching, so if he has feedback, let us know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good.
I mean, there really is wireless here, it's just not publicly available.
No, actually, there isn't any wireless in this building presently.
What, are you watching the game?
No, I'm just looking at
your cell phone.
access points that get pretty good reception here.
We have an apartment building across the street. Sure.
Sorry I mentioned anything.
That's sufficient.
I have a question on page, actually, 39.
Okay.
You have a new configuration management system.
Yes, sir.
Are the savings that you're intending to use for the half FTE annual savings each year that you're going to see from the CMS?
Going forward, yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Ken?
Mr. Stallman?
Mom, I guess I've got more of a library question, but it's probably gonna be IS related, so I guess I can just wait till we get there. You'll stick around, right?
No.
He'll be here,
You'll get on your Wi-Fi.
he'll be here till the last dog
I really don't
howls.
blame him.
Bronco game's starting.
Well, I think it's on in the hall.
Ken learned a couple of years ago about leaving early.
Lock the door.
Dangerous thing to do. Yeah. All right. Administrative service. Questions on page 46?
It's a joke. Keep moving.
Okay.
Got one on 49
Ghost
now.
division.
We had a concept conversation about the print shop, vis-à-vis potentially talking to LPS and seeing about merging operations for mutual cost savings. I don't know if that's gone anywhere.
I believe
Wendy's done some
Wendy
work
has
on
done a
this.
survey. Wendy Hefner, our city clerk.
I had our printer, when you brought that up before, speak to several different print shops in the city of Littleton and various areas. LPS, Arapahoe, ACC, and Arapahoe County about combining. They answered questions that Rachel put out about how they bill, how they use their equipment, how many employees they have, how their delivery works, because they're very spread out compared to, we are spread out, but not as much as LPS or Arapahoe County, of course. ACC is pretty confined, and after reviewing the data, it was apparent that combining the services with an outside entity would add unnecessary steps, cost, and travel time, resulting in a decline of efficiency. And neither none of the print shops have a surplus of man hours or idle machinery to be occupied by another entity. And so after speaking with Phil today, we talked about combining paper orders, say LPS and Arapahoe County and the city of Littleton bought all their paper from the same place. But we already buy our paper through the Cooperative Purchase Network contract, through a Cooperative Purchase Network contract, and it's the cheapest that we can get it.
Okay, and it sounds like good work, just, going out and doing the research to figure some of that out. I guess the curiosity would be, in theory, if you've got what amounts to be an assembly line operation and you could get it scheduled, theoretically, I mean, all four of those entities pretty much at best run their equipment half-time because they run it during the day, they don't run it at night. So if you basically had two of the machines running constantly and paid the staff, obviously somebody would have to do a second or third shift. In theory, couldn't you eliminate two sets of print shops and spread the savings around? Just asking.
I suppose you probably could, but the efficiency would be gone.
Yeah.
Because you'd still have to travel, deliver. We have people come into the print shop every day who let me use the library as an example. The library comes in and they need some flyers put up. Rachel spends time doing the graphic arts on those flyers or whatever it might be, or the big posters, and she prints those right there, and she's got them ready this afternoon, and the library can come pick them up this afternoon. That's not gonna happen if they're out somewhere.
No, but in theory, if the thing were scheduled upright, and those things were printed overnight, the library could come and get them the next day. I mean, the travel side, I would think the travel would continue regardless, because you still gotta take stuff to the schools or the county offices or to our buildings. I'm just talking about, running what amounts to be 4 print shops running 4 print shops with the staffing and capacity basically by combining 2 of them. But
I do know what you're saying.
Yeah, okay.
It's just, I think, and maybe it's just that our employees have gotten spoiled, but we have one employee in our print shop, and she is running those copiers
if we had
8 hours a day.
if we had 2 or 3 employees and, we're as lean and as efficient as we can be to keep the efficiency level up, to respond. Now, if you want to look at how this may help LPS or other organizations, they're the ones that are probably going to benefit if we did any kind of merger. But as far as we're concerned, our departments are happy with the turnaround time, and the type of stuff that we do is not always the same as some of the
totally
other.
understand. I'm just strictly in economies of scale.
No, and I thought the idea of looking at the paper side of it was maybe something we could explore, but if we're getting the best price we can right now, we're not opposed to that idea. It's just, right now, right on the surface, to put the time and effort into working with these entities who've already said they don't think it's going to be worthwhile.
And LPS was the least responsive.
Okay.
We practically had to go over there and get them to answer the questions.
Okay.
And so it was difficult to work with them, but let me also add, just as an important line, that the museum, this last year, we have cut just on general, on page 50 and 51, you can see how we've cut, and I know that you asked a question about staff time, and no, it does not.
Okay.
But we brought all those in, and she's there, so that's why our machine is working 8 to 9 hours a day now, nonstop, because we brought the museum and Rachel have worked together and brought all these projects that have saved quite a lot of money in the last year.
And I think what Wendy's done with the print shop in cooperation with the museum and with Kelly, working with communications and working with Chris Hargith, I just think we've reached the level of really good cooperation and efficiency. We'll always keep looking, but right now, I think that print shop is running pretty efficient and humming along pretty well.
Okay. Thanks.
And I do think possibly both kinds of figures should be the actual cost without the staff who are doing the work, and then a cost otherwise. Because if you're going to send it out, if you were, you're paying employee cost in part, their hourly employee cost to do that.
I can include that.
Because when I looked at the cost of the business cards, I thought, my goodness, that's a pretty darn good bargain if it includes staff time, so. And that then maybe gets us to think of some other ways that we can maybe assist in some way.
Okay, city clerk, page 54. Going on, page 59.
Wait a minute. What happened to page 52 and 3?
You have questions on 52 or 53?
Yeah, I did send this out. On 52, the definition of elderly,
Well, I did get your note in there. I didn't define elderly. 55 was the age that council set, I would imagine, a long time ago. Even back in the 80s, 55 was considered elderly by this standard for the shopping cart and for the omnibus. But I don't think 55 is elderly. I'm almost there.
Thank you.
But my dad's almost 70, and I don't think of my dad as elderly. I think that they just use that word. I can change the word if you'd like me to.
Hell with pride, what do you get for it?
And that's our cutoff for writing the omnibus.
Experience.
and, so if that's what we want, and I think that's okay, I just think not using that word, particularly people are living longer significantly now than even in the 80s, so.
I can change that.
You know, there's a qualitative issue to that. I mean, looking at the omnibus, because it's for elderly and handicapped.
Right.
And so, and we could query the drivers. My sense, my hunch is there's a very small number of mobile, vigorous 55-year-olds that
Right.
call up and ask for an appointment with the omnibus. That's just my hunch, but we could survey that. But I understand your point is, should there be maybe a little higher bar? But we could talk with the drivers, you know, I've kind of ridden on the omnibus from time to time. Most of those are really elderly, frail, or handicapped
No,
people.
and
But
I've seen them riding around, and,
yeah,
and that's
sure.
okay.
But that's a you know, very legitimate question to
I
ask.
think
Maybe.
it cultivates, doesn't affect the budget and all that, but it
Right.
cultivates an image.
A
that-
perception.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good point.
59. Sixty-two. 66. Municipal court.
62 to 66, there's something wrong with your counting here. And I did send this question, my mind must have gone someplace on vacation, but I thought, when the judge, who's in the audience here, spoke to us several months ago, can I speak to the judge then?
Sure.
That you said that the actual file folder system and all that, you were asking to be deferred and to bring in the electronic system, which would be much more efficient.
Well, no, there's two different things. One of them was, that's two different things. One of them is the file folder system was going forward, that was replacing what we had before, and that required some changes to the filing cabinets that they fit into because of the different
Okay, so
sizes.
we're okay.
That's
Okay.
and that's done. I think that we showed a reduction because that system is in place now. We have all that's necessary, and so it's reducing back down in cost because
So
all
I
those are
was
replaced.
hearing right on the one thing, but,
The other thing is a software upgrade that comes up with the system that's in place now, and that's in a different item.
Right.
okay, thank you.
No, I was just to say, the software, we kind of did a quick survey of the attorney's office and our office and the judge, and you know, and then we talked to the vendor, and there are some upgrades to the software that we use today that we probably should just go ahead and get, and help to make us more efficient. So that's what the upgrade is gonna be to the system,
Yeah,
to this.
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the court? Human Resources, page 72.
There was one question, I just, Eric, he put the budget together, it's his budget. We work closely together on efficiency studies, and someone, I can't remember who, asked, what studies are we doing next year? To be honest with you, we're not gonna do any at this point. We have a new city manager coming on, we have a new council coming on. We wanna get direction from council come February on what do you wanna do? Do you wanna do strategic planning? Is that gonna cost us money? Do we wanna use some of the money that we have here for some of that? We're not opposed to doing any more efficiency studies. We just think right now is a time to, we've got a lot in the hopper. We've done PD, we've done fire, and right now we got IS on our list. And, I'm sorry, library, on our list. And, I think we just need to take a time out in February when you do your workshop. Let's talk about what you wanna do with that. Other than that, it's his budget. Yeah.
And then I do have a question on 72 before we get past that. In the 2012 goals, does,
Peggy, could you pull your mic up a little closer?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
thank you. Is that okay, Jose?
I don't think it's on.
Well, big time. Is the human resources, the training, sexual harassment prevention training, is that for all employees?
That is correct. We do a biannual cycle on that particular training. We will cover all employees, and we do that every 2 years is our cycle.
No matter who hires the employees?
No matter who hires the employees.
Or the direct report, or,
Correct.
and council, don't wring my neck, but it would seem to me that might be good to also include council.
Sure,
Because
absolutely.
I don't know how recently council have had any training on this. Anybody want to comment?
I have to go through annual training on my corporate side.
No, I think it's a great idea.
You're gone.
Yeah. Let me just ask a question on that, and I don't, Joe Grinowitz isn't here, but maybe Eric knows that. When council members come in, if I remember this, there's a SURSA video, and I see Debbie shaking her head. Does that talk about harassment? I think it does.
It does, but I'm not sure that it covers the depth of this.
Doesn't cover what?
The depth. The depth.
Oh, well, anyway, it's up to council. I mean, I think if council wants to, if council members want to attend, you know, certainly we can create a slot.
We're
for
open
you.
to it.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
so I suggest just,
Councilmember Stallman, did you go through a SURSA video?
You were texting at the time, but,
you signed off on?
I don't remember what I had for lunch today. I think I did, but I.
Good answer.
Yeah.
The beauty of our HR department is that you can take the sexual harassment course online.
It is merely meant to be a refresher. Some states, such as California, require it on an annual basis. The state of Colorado does not require a specific time period, but they do require employers to do refresher ongoing sexual harassment, and that's particularly the reason why. So
It's certainly available.
Well, but I suggest letting council know if they want to
Yeah, good
do
idea.
that.
We'll just make sure that you know how to access that, or if you want to attend, you know, when we have a speaker come in, you can do that too, but we'll let you know what the availability is.
Thank you.
Okay, building maintenance, page 80.
Question?
Sir.
you're out of questions, you can't ask anymore.
I've used up my allotment. Phil, can I get a couple of yours? The main question here is really just conceptual. as in, and I know you guys do this, and I think you do some excellent work in this regard as a plug. But are there any other economically attractive projects across the city that we should be looking at from a facilities or building maintenance perspective? This goes back to lighting retrofits, HVAC changeouts. Is there anything that you guys have looked at where there looks like there's a payout, you know,
Let me see.
a 12-month, 18-month payback?
Was it 16 months ago we brought back performance contracts?
Well, not so much that, yeah.
Okay, never mind. Oh, bad stuff.
That was, the problem with that was, we were basically, all the return was going to the guy that was providing the financing.
Well,
The council was not comfortable with,
Right.
with the mechanics.
But that didn't mean there weren't projects that we could fund over a period of time.
right.
If we
And-
saw the same.
And what we, to bring everybody back up to speed real quick, we did a technical energy audit of all our buildings. And when we presented that back to council on some of the paybacks and some of the investment to do some of these energy efficiency type projects, the payback wasn't there. So that doesn't mean that Dave and I and the budget team, we still targeted some of those projects that we had in here. Now, are there some larger projects that we would want to tackle? Again, the subject would be, is there enough payback? For instance, if we truly wanted to do solar panels around the museum or somewhere at the museum, which was one suggestion, again, you're still faced with the idea of how much do you want to invest and what's your payback? You know, I think right now what you have on special projects is the parking lot lighting that we're doing that's in the special projects, and then these, what we call, I call them the walkway lights, but the ballard lights that go around City Hall here, besides them not being very, they're old and the parts are hard to find and they're not efficient, we put those kinds of things in the budget. So right now, if you would ask me, I'd say go back and look at our special projects and those lighting programs. That's what I would say, other than if you want to take the leap and go into the whole solar discussion again, we could.
I guess speaking just for me personally, I'd be keen to see if you guys have gone through some of these projects and you think there's an economically attractive decision point, I think we should consider it. You have the data, and we've talked about that.
Yes, and you and I, we're working on that whole idea of if we're going to go solar, who we got to work with, so.
The answer is for the, what I'll call manageable scope of business. Dave and his team, you know, in terms of replacing with more efficient boilers, et cetera, I believe we've got a very good track record at looking at payback. The kinds of things you're talking about, I think, is going to take a study session with the full council participating, where they will be probably more complicated, larger scope projects. But I think on the year in and year out, that, you know, updating efficient lighting, looking at replacing these outdated boilers, we've got a pretty good track record there.
And I would agree with that. It was as much encouragement to say, I think it's keep doing it. And if you have stuff you want to do that you're on the fence on, I'd love to see it.
And just to get a plug for what we did with our energy efficiency grant money that we received, we did replace the HAV system on Town Hall, and there was 2 of them, and we paid for one, and the grant money paid for another, and then we did the lights at the Bemis Library to be more energy efficiency. Now, you'll hear later, we're going to use some of that money because not everybody spent that money that we gave to the community. We're going to take it back and do some lights that we just talked about in the capital project. So we're always looking for efficiency, finding savings, and using other people's money if we can.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I want to see those 1860 solar panels that you put around.
I didn't say we're going to do it.
They're in the
He's
18,
being a
they're in the
smart-
1890
The
demonstration.
mayor's being a little bit of a smarty pants.
Phil, one of the things you mentioned is not doing efficiency studies. Were there consulting services involved in any of that this past year? Because at least as I went through some of the line items, I didn't see either a drop-off, and is there a placeholding for what would come out of the workshop as some priority items that might utilize some consultants?
if you're saying under what line item would we take the money from, sometimes it's wherever I can find it. For instance, the project, special project that I'm working on with community development, which actually I think is going pretty well, we're going to
You're supposed
take.
to nod your head on that, Glenn.
Yeah, you're supposed to nod your head. We are splitting the cost for this consultant, which we limited the number of hours, and he reduced his cost to us. And between Glenn's department and my department, we're gonna split the cost on that. So if you come up with ideas, and you guys can get together and give us clear direction, we'll go find the money.
And I do have a question. I have no idea, I know all this lighting retrofit and all that, you know, we've got top folks doing that keep track of all kinds of stuff. And I did include in my questions that I sent out, it looked like the electric use, right, was not all that adjusted, but I'm assuming it's because we got the police expansion. Is there a way
To break it out.
to break it out so we could see the,
We can try to do that. I
I
thought
mean-
about that, but we didn't really, to be honest with you, have the time, but we can do that. The two things that are driving us is the new expansion of the police building, which we didn't, that's just more electricity. And also, we got a lot more high-tech stuff in PD too, so that's running us a little high. And the other thing that affects our utilities in general is the weather. If it's colder or hotter than usual than any summer, the building needs to be cooled. Now, we try to keep it, cooler. We reduce the cooling during the night, but then you guys sometimes complain, say, hey, it's too hot in here. So we're trying after 10 o'clock to keep this building the minimum that we can. So we're doing everything we can.
The too hot in here usually doesn't have to do with the temperature.
Yeah, that's truly true, but that's another
well,
subject.
the only reason I was asking, I think this is really helpful for citizens to see that we did this and it actually brought stuff down. Now, my little house, it's easy to keep track of, and I've been doing it every month for about 10 years. And when I swapped out lights, I saw the difference, et cetera, but I didn't add on, I didn't do an expansion, so I don't have that complication.
Let me give a plug to another group, the Sustainability Committee. That's the one that Kelly and the employees work on, and they help deliver the message to shut your lights off and conserve energy, and don't print as many papers as, from your computer and so forth. So it's a big cooperation that we're all trying to nitpick it all the way through.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, police, page 90.
Actually, I'm sorry, can I, two quick questions on page 85.
Okay.
Talk to me a little bit about the variable speed motor controllers.
What? I thought we were done.
They're really cool.
They're,
It seems
what
awful.
building?
The variable speed motor controllers for 16,000.
Oh,
Priority 3.
they have to do with the HVAC
HVAC.
system.
Right.
And they're motors that force the air through the system.
So they are motors
Yes,
as opposed to
and-
electronics.
Yes, and they're just getting old, and they're running all the time. And so they need to, replace them. The push that I've given to building maintenance is, and not that they haven't done this in the past, but is to be preventive. Go out and look at those pieces of equipment that have moving parts. And actually, if we can sustain not replacing them, fine. But if they tell me, hey, you got an HVA system, or like what we're doing with Town Hall, if that elevator, it's already failed once or twice, and luckily there wasn't anybody in it, they're saying, we need to replace it now, not wait till it fails. So they're trying to be more preventive than they are anything else. So it is a moving part. What else you got?
Well, the other one, I guess, was Priority 9 on the same page, the issue of automatic gates at the service center. I mean, why do we need automatic gates as opposed to just open and shut it at night?
Does anybody from staff who has to drive their vehicles through there want to tell them why we need
If
automatic
it's
gates?
just open during the day.
Fire, here, go
I
ahead.
can address that one for you.
Tell them, Chief Fireman.
After-hours fueling for the public safety vehicles, both police and fire. So you have police vehicles and fire vehicles that don't normally fuel during the middle of the day, that could be middle of the night when they go down there.
Yeah.
So they have to have access to that facility. So the gates are automated to allow them in and out.
So we fuel all our vehicles from a depot as opposed to just use a P card at the corner store?
That is correct.
Yep.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Please.
PD, Chief Coogan is at the table.
Or I should say 92.
89.
Pardon, 89? What you want?
I have a question on the Humane Services contract. Maybe Suzanne even knows this answer. Do we know that it's $50,000 going forward each year?
Yes.
Okay.
You're neither Suzanne nor Heather.
I'm sorry, I jumped in. It's just, we worked so close together on this, I knew this was gonna come up, and it's 50.
It's mentioned on the general side is that the budget includes one less police officer for 2012. Heather, do you want to discuss that, the impact, where that comes from?
Last year in our cuts, we had frozen 2 positions for half a year. We discussed it with the budget team and decided to go with the 1 cut. If Jim like to address that. We had a number of cuts we still need to make, and so that was our recommendation from the 2 frozen.
You guys feel it's a preferable solution to eliminate one staff position as opposed to try to squeeze the money out of something else?
Frankly, we looked at the whole budget and couldn't come up with the amount of money we needed to do any other way.
Okay.
Which officer is what position would it be? I mean,
Typically, we're never able to stay fully staffed. That's why we have the pipeline that we've discussed in the past. So the shortages that we have currently, and typically where they all come out of, are either out of traffic or set. Because we need to keep the street fully staffed at all times. So that's our number 1 priority. So when we run short, that's where we take it from.
What's the status of the pipeline?
We didn't pipeline any officers in 2011. So council gave us permission to pipeline. With the budget and the 10% cuts, we didn't think that was wise to do. We looked to council to probably bring that back next year because we are never fully staffed. It typically takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months to hire a police officer. So by the time we catch up, we're always under budget on the personnel side.
And just as in a broader context for council, I think, because I can't remember in my time here, maybe 1 or 2 weeks where we were ever 100% staffed in police. But if we ever got to, and the pipeline, as Chief Coogan said, because of the turnover, it seems to work. If in the future, if we ever got to a point where the metrics started to change, I know over the last 3 years, our crime rates have dropped. If you look at the response, we now metric the responses to 911 calls. If those started to go in another direction, then some future manager or chief may come back to you. But right now, we think that pipeline process is working and providing good service. And if you look at the metrics for the city, crime rates are generally down and response rates are good.
Yeah, but are they down because we're appropriately covering the city?
Well, and I'll tell you, in my whole career, there's not a clear, easy answer to that in any city in the country. What it does, though, is it tells you if they are going one direction, it tells you you've got an issue somewhere in the system. But right now, we think with the pipeline that because of that turnover, generally we don't see a significant problem with service in the police department.
But we don't have the pipeline in in place right now.
We've just, for this year,
We didn't do any pipelines in 2011, only replacing shortages.
So are you,
we can't even keep up, we're not even been able to staff, because of turnovers, we're not even staffing our authorized strength, much less the pipeline.
so then are you gonna, in 2012, the pipeline will start again?
Yes, I'd like to do that, to take the 69 and then the 2 pipelines to attempt to hire them. But as I said, it typically takes 6 to 8 months to hire someone.
So to do the pipeline for 2012, you don't need to put anything in this budget?
I do not.
Okay.
Sort of 2 operating expense questions. You guys have the fleet, or the vehicle rent and the vehicle fuel. On the vehicle rent, I understand we deferred vehicles from last year, so the standard, the basic question there is this just because they were scheduled for this year and deferred for last year, or do we really need them? And then secondly, we've got fuel cost going up quite a bit versus the year-end estimate for this year, and frankly, fuel costs have sort of come down, so I guess I'm wondering, are we burning more miles, or is it just an estimate that needs to be adjusted?
Well, let me address the vehicle lease, and Earlene will talk about the gas. We deferred on that 10% last year, 15 rental payments for 15 cars on the leases. That was $75,000. So we've got to make that up this year. So when you add the 75 for this year plus the 75 we deferred, that's 150,000 more.
Wait a minute, when you say we deferred the lease payments last year?
On
what-
15 vehicles.
What is it? Help me understand exactly what you mean by deferring the lease payments.
Basically, the lease payments all go back into our fleet fund. So the fleet fund
this is
had enough of a
internal
balance. Yeah, that's an internal thing. It's not like we asked the company to please defer our payments. So since it's an internal transaction, we decided that the fleet fund had enough of a balance. They could cover that 75,000 for a year while police worked on another solution. You might remember those cuts were kind of last minute last year. So that was their temporary solution for that. So this year, basically, that 75,000 was doubled, it looks like, in the budget, because we're paying that 2011 amount and then adding the 2012.
So what is the status, the functional status of the fleet at this point in time? Is it, how many vehicles do we truly need to replace because they're at 300,000 miles, or they're just falling apart, or?
Can we defer that to the fleet discussion, just so we don't mix?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome, because I know Alan will want to speak to that, and I don't know that he's here. So that was all I was,
Ken's
yeah.
here.
And then on the fuel side of it, I just wanted to step up here and note that the city, the entire organization has really worked this year at cutting our consumption.
Yeah.
And we've done an amazing job at that, but police, being one of the biggest consumers of fuel, has cut their consumption by 5% this year from what it was last year. So these numbers in here really are just an estimate of where Alan thinks the fuel numbers are gonna be next year, the cost. So the cost per gallon really is what's driving this number right now.
All right, see, and I guess my sense of that is, I mean, the price of oil has dropped down, you know, we're 80 some odd dollars a barrel kind of thing versus it was well over 100 earlier in the year. Far be it from me to suggest there's any sandbagging going on.
Yeah, well,
I think you
the
need to
problem
look
with,
at
the problem with the cost on the fuel is that even though the police consumption is down 5%, their cost, the actual cost that they're seeing is up like, what was it, 19 this month? It was something huge compared to how much they're cutting. So that cost side of it, and that's not an estimated cost, that's the cost that they're paying for the fuel right now. So that cost, it's overshadowing any consumption efforts that are going on, unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah, but you're,
I understand your point,
listen, you know, you're making a good point, but well, like I said, we're sitting here and somebody's got to guess.
No, I understand.
And so, you know, we'd rather guess, staff would rather guess on the conservative side than have who knows what, you know, again, a blow up in the Middle East, so some kinds of things.
Right now, our fuel numbers, most of our departments are gonna be over budget on their fuel for this year, for 2011. So for next year, Alan wanted to make sure we didn't stick departments in that same position of trying to come up with that money at the end of the year.
You didn't want to
I
be
guess-
So we just,
I hear what you're saying, I mean, basically, but if I look at your vehicle fuel numbers here on police, the annualized estimate is 155, the year-end estimate is 142, the budget is 185. So, I mean, even over the annualized estimate, which you guys are expecting theoretically to come down,
What page are you on?
892. Well, I'm on 92, it's on 93 as well, but if you look at the trends off of 92, which is 7550-003 account, I mean, you go back in time, it's never been 185. And so it's a 19% over what the annualized estimate is. I get where you're coming from, I totally understand what you're saying. If this is system-wide, you may want to revisit those numbers a little bit, just to double check. Because, I mean, I don't mind, having some cushion, I think it's smart.
We had a big discussion about that, Councilman. You're asking good questions. It's a matter of just,
Okay.
how much volatility and who's going to take accountability for the number we stick in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's put the officer up on the board.
Pardon?
I'd like to put that police officer back up on the board.
So while she's writing that, I did in the questions I emailed, ask about the intoxilizer. I think Bruce might have too. Is the governor's mandate, does it cover not letting us be mandated to get that without funding?
We received a letter from the state of Colorado, basically telling us that in order to fund the project, that they were requesting that law enforcement agencies start planning and budgeting for replacement expenses of our current instruments. To ensure adequate funding, agencies should budget $10,000 per instrument. The funds will need to be available January of 2012. And we have one intoxilizer, that's why we put that in there. And basically, what the state has said is they don't have the money.
Well,
And
but
so they're asking-
did they determine we need to replace it, or did we?
They did. They're actually upgrading the system, and so they're requiring everyone to get a new machine. And then there'll be new software and installation that goes in effective July 1 of 2012 is the last of the installation and the upgrade.
So my question still is,
The
though,
executive order you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and I mean, I'll just make an editorial comment. The other inquiries we made about the executive order, there's so many loopholes in that executive order. I'm not sure anybody's actually in the states actually seen it effective, but if there's somebody out there, give me a call.
Well, and the state estimated it would be between $1.6 and $2 million to replace these machines, and in the letter it says they don't have the money. That's why they're holding local agencies to do it.
you might want to be following up a little publicly on this. But apart from that, so then my comment in what I sent is if somebody tests, illegal when they use this thing, is there a way to increase the court fine to help cover this cost?
Is that by the state court? I'm sorry.
I was just saying the fines are set by the state court because these would be DUIs.
Okay, so we can't do anything on that. And are they subject to input? Little
I mean,
feedback?
even if they were, the state court would keep the money.
Okay, so we're just, no wonder they're doing this. Okay.
Do these things actually wear out?
The technology improves, and,
Does that mean the old ones are not any good?
well, they won't certify them, and all that kind of equipment has to be certified for its scientific reliability.
And if you don't have them, then the defense attorneys are going to make a big deal out of it.
I mean, I think the answer would be you don't have to have them, but then you're going to lose all your court cases.
Unless you write them in the county.
Well, you write them into county anyway, but
You can't prove it.
you can't prove it, right?
I thought when we did Citizens Academy, I thought they basically did the eye thing to see whether or not weren't there some other things you could do to sort of
That
prove
wouldn't-
intoxication?
Well, that wouldn't be enough for the court, though. Clearly, if you have to allow a person to take a breathalyzer, we have to have the equipment to do the test.
Yeah, the eye thing you're talking about was one of the things they can do to, just with their expertise, say, we can stop you, we can do this. But then when you go to court to prove it, that's the other piece, right? Thank you.
Shall we try page 102? Page 104. That's it for police. Can we do fire in 10 minutes? 8 minutes?
If not, we have to take a break.
What's council's pleasure?
You want to adjourn tonight, or you want to do fire first?
They actually have fire
No,
and
like a
public services.
5-minute break.
You got public services too.
Yeah, public
Yeah,
services
but
too.
somebody needs a break, somebody should have a break.
There'll be no breaks.
Drinking.
It's like 107, 10, 100.
What's the last page? 357.
You need to make a motion.
All right, let's.
Yeah, I make a motion that we have a break. Can I get a second?
Second. All in favor, leave the room.
Be back in by noon 9. Since we're back from our break, it's time to adjourn. But tomorrow night, apparently, we're going to start with the sewer fund, because we have,
We'd like to do that, council, because we've invited the Inglewood people from the sewer treatment plant to be here. So just as a courtesy, if we can have them up first, so they can get in and then get out.
We'll be fresher then, too.
and then we'll start
We'll be
with,
really fresh
Yeah,
then.
you'll be real fresh then, too, for the first.
yes, ma'am. So we're now adjourned. Thank you all for being here.
All right. Thank you. Seven.
Just a reminder that tomorrow you have 4 interviews before, so if we could start right at 6 o'clock so that you can go right into the budget, that would be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all. Meeting tomorrow at 7.